Okay, there we go. Good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Golly, kind of exciting. All kinds of good stuff concerning the book and next month's book. Um, my mouse died, so I ordered one. Hopefully, we'll have it here shortly. Maybe that's what's been causing me some problems with, clicking and everything else. But we've gone through like 6 batteries, and even with new batteries, and you don't get any light coming out of here, and so. Just ordered a new battery, a new mouse. I was hoping it would arrive before we started this evening. It said it would be here after 5 and before 10. So it looks like it's going to be closer to the before 10. But anyhow, let's do a check. Can you hear me? Can you see me? How are we looking there? And then we'll start. If I can maneuver around here, we'll see if I can. All right, there we go. I was getting ready to type. Scott, you always come through, buddy. Thank you so much for that. Let me check in with all these fantastic people who are here. Teresa, I haven't seen you in a while, Teresa. Welcome back. Good to see you. Scott Hummer, Utah Mike. We're the first two. And then Theoxorus. Good evening, Theoxorus. Teresa Buchanan, Laura Mannion, Scott Hummer. Yeah, I already said. Let me see. Anybody else? Teresa Buchanan, of course. Wow, great. Got some good friends there. Thank you for being here. I tried to block the sun. We've got, of course, we're now on, we've already passed the summer solstice, which was on the 20th. I watched a fantastic science show about that, why it was on the 20th this year instead of the 21st. But, just the rotation of the earth and the cycles and everything else and our calendar year and all that kinds of stuff. Just really interesting. But our days are getting shorter. So we're going to get, our days will continue to get shorter until the winter solstice, which will be around December 21st. Of course, then we have the autumnal equinox, which is theoretically where we have equal amounts of daylight and nighttime and lack of daylight, which is going to be around September 21st. So, and then you have the vernal equinox, which is around March 21st. So, but our days are starting to get shorter. So as they get shorter, they get hotter. Welcome, Steve and Tina Jewell. That's a new name. So happy to see you. Thank you for joining us. So we're doing our, gosh, I tell you what, I can't say enough good about this book. You aren't going to get a whole bunch of prepping secrets unless you're into people prepping secrets. Let me tell you some of my favorite books. Pillars of the Earth by John Forsyth. Billy Budd and Moby Dick by Herman Melville. Just phenomenal books. Anything by John Steinbeck. I love John Steinbeck. Then, of course, now it's being used as the name for an AI company. But Robert wrote the book Stranger in a Strange Land. I read that when I was in probably middle school. I think it was at Blessed Sacrament Middle School when I read that. And that had to be back in the 65, 66 era. That's where the term grok, G-R-O-K, comes from. Of course, Starship Troopers from Robert A. Heinlein. Gosh, just so many phenomenal books out there. George Orwell, in my opinion, wrote 2 of the best books that you'll ever read. He wrote 1984 and he wrote Animal Farm, and they cause you to think. You really had to think. Both of them are highly anti-communist. Remember, George Orwell was right after World War II. He's writing about the communist threat, what he perceived from the Soviet Union and coming into Western Europe, the beginning of NATO. And then as a result of NATO, you have the Warsaw Pact, the Warszawski Dogovor. And so, a lot of intrigue going on there. In my opinion, this series, which is Blue Dawn and then book 2, A Most Uncivil War, and then book 3 is coming out because you can tell where that's going at the end of book 2. But anyhow, this is a 21st century rival for George Orwell's books in the 20th century. I mean, you can read it and you would, honest to gosh, think that you're sitting here reading today's news. It's just unbelievable. When was it written? Let me check the actual publication date. So the copyright is 2022, so 3 years ago. And so, gosh, it's unbelievable. One of the things I really love about his books, at the very beginning, if you're getting into a series, it's always great to have a synopsis of who the key characters are in the key organizations. So Alex, short for Alexandra, no last name is given, former congresswoman from New York. What do you think already? She sits on the ruling council, commands the National Security Force, which is basically the new America, the new country after the U.S. has been overthrown. So it's their equivalent to the FBI, CIA, NSA, all combined into one, the National Security Force. As its secretary, she's removed her opposition and folded the social enforcers, which are basically Antifa-type characters, into the NSF. She's the new America vice presidential candidate. Andy Forrest, Andy's father was a member of the Sons of Liberty. Sons of Liberty are basically what we might call the Minutemen of this era. The Proud Boys, the ultra-rightists, the militiamen, and things like that. He was instrumental in recovering the original copy of the Constitution and Declaration of Independence and has those in safety. Brad, no name given, is a student at the University of Virginia. Julius Bernstein is an NSF operative. Becky Clark is the director of Truth Reconciliation Committee, the TRC, and a member of the ruling council. She was instrumental in seizing control of Congress during the liberation. She was one of the three, really, that was responsible for the takeover of the Capitol. Travis Cullen is a former Navy SEAL, now a covert operative supporting the American administration. So what's happened is you've got this division of what are Numerica states and counties, primarily what we would traditionally think of today as being blue states and counties. And then you have the American government, which is what we would consider today red states and counties. Jack Desmond is the former director of the Secret Service, now the American president's chief of staff. He was instrumental in bringing the former American vice president to power. The president's been assassinated. And so he is now has been sworn in as the new president in accordance with the Constitution, and for years was the clandestine leader of the Sons of Liberty. Captain Gerald Trigger DeYoung is an officer in the Texas National Guard, the 39th Infantry Division, as a matter of fact, in the American Army. Tess Ditka is an aide to the director of the TRC. Detective Dale Gallagher is a member of the NSF. Deja Jordan is a social enforcer from Minneapolis. Charlie Kaczynski is current director of the American Secret Service. For years, she lived as an NSF officer named Angel Frisorski to avoid detection. She was with the last president when he died. I'm sorry, I said current director of the American Secret Service. I'm sorry. Kaylee Latrim was a former NSF operative. She has flipped sides and now offers her skills to the Americans. She killed Alex. Remember, that's the Congresswoman Alexandra, the Congresswoman from New York, who is the lead usurper. Let's call her that. And Kaylee also was trained by the CIA. She in ex-military. Senator Earl Taft Lewis is one of the few surviving senators after the liberation, and he is on the side of the NSF or the ruling council. Raul Lopez is a former member of the Youth Corps. So just like a lot of organizations where they try to indoctrinate people at a very young age, they have a youth corps. And so they're trying to indoctrinate people into this new Numerica governmental entity by enticing the youth. As a member of this, and his murder of a man leads to riots in Detroit. As a member of the Sons of Liberty, he liberated the social enforcement camp at Valley Forge. So just like we've seen a lot of other socialist, communist, autocratic governments, if you don't conform to what they want, they put you into a re-education center. Here they call them social enforcement camps. In Russia in the Soviet Union, they were called Государственный управляемый лагерь, or a state-run camp. And they abbreviated that. Государственный is G, управляемый is U, and then лагерь or camp is LAG. So Gulag, Gulag. So that's in Alexander Solzhenitsyn. There's another great book, The Gulag Archipelago. And he also wrote another great book called Rakovy Corpus. And which means cancerous body. And so he talks an awful lot about how communism is like a cancer that spreads like cancer spreads inside the body and destroys it. So communism spreads inside a country and destroys it. Lieutenant Judy Mercury is an officer in the Texas National Guard in the American Army. Jane Pistos is an employee at the ruling council. And Daniel Porter, chairman of the ruling council, he will be elected president of New America. Daniel orchestrated the overthrow of the government during the Liberation Fall. So that was Becky, Alexandra, and Daniel were the three primary leaders of the overthrow of the government. Colonel Trip Rager, renowned and scorned for his actions in San Antonio several years back. Rager is a Texan who is loyal to the American cause and one of the most recognized military commanders. Tripp is an officer in the Texas National Guard and the American Army. David Steele is Maddie's younger brother. Grayson Steele is a former conservative member of the Virginia House of Delegates and Maddie's and David's father. And Maddie Steele is a conservative law student at the University of Virginia, whose family has been living on the run since the fall. Tina, no name given, is a student at the University of Virginia. So let's talk about the Steele family. So what they have to do is, after the overthrow, they have to change their names and constantly move about so that nobody, as a matter of fact, in the book, in one instance, they get recognized by somebody. And so they have to change their name and move again. And Maddie has chosen to go to a New America College, University of Virginia Law School. And it's noticed, everybody's noticing that she is attending, all she's doing is studying, going to the dining facility, eating, taking that food back to her room, studying. She's not participating in any of the what would we call them? Anti-America rallies or anything like that. She's not participating in any of the clubs or organizations. And so, people are starting to notice that she is possibly a conservative. And so they're really, keeping an eye on her. And she gets, as a matter of fact, she gets called in by her what do we call those? In college, when you're doing your studies, you have an administrator who basically recommends things for you. Gosh, can't believe I spent so much time in college. I forget what they're called. But anyhow, he tells her that it's being noticed, that she is not participating in any of the social activities, that she's not fulfilling her obligations as a citizen and renouncing the conservatism and everything else. So we've got a couple things going on. So there are two major armed conflicts that happen. The first one is in San Antonio, and Trip Rager is a major at the time, and so they are called down to basically through peace through strength. They just want to show a force. And so they have an M1, M2 battalion. So M1s are the Abrams tank, and M2s are the Bradley fighting vehicle. And so he has a battalion of those down around the Alamo. They're trying to just protect things from the riot getting out of hand. All of a sudden, live fire is used by the bad guys. These are the Antifa thugs and everybody else. And so, they have a couple injuries, and finally, the Antifa types are lobbing mortar shells, and it lands into the command post and kills the battalion commander. And Rieger was I think he was the S3. He was the operations officer. He was a major, and that's typical position for a major would be either the XO or the operations officer for a battalion. And he assumes command, and then all of a sudden they get more live fire and basically technicals. Technicals a term we use primarily in our Arab conflicts. And what they do is they're typically a Toyota Tacoma, and they'll mount a machine gun or some other heavy crew-served weapon in the bed of that truck, and then that truck can move around. Very famous in Somalia. The technicals. That's what they were fighting primarily in Black Hawk Down, in Mogadishu, were the technicals. And so, they come up with those. They start firing it, and so Rieger authorizes the use of live ammo, and it turns into a bloodbath. When you have unarmed. Well, I'm not going to say unarmed. When you have armed but unruled civilians trying to take on a military unit, it doesn't end well. So that's kind of always burning in the back of his mind. And then he gets sent up. They're going to have free elections. And so the president of America, the vice president who has been sworn in, decides to send him and a battalion up to Chicago to try to ensure that the vote is not inhibited. All kinds of great suggestions in the book on how to have elections so that they are as much integrity as possible. What we did to the Iraqis, we dipped their finger when they voted into this ink. Well, not only was it the ink, but there's also an ultraviolet component to it. So even if you wash the ink off, that ultraviolet part underneath would show up under a black light. So, that way you can tell that somebody's only voted once. You don't let them vote again if they stick their finger under the black light. Proof of identification. Then they have paper ballots. That paper ballot has to be certified as readable before it's actually put into the ballot box. That way we don't have any more 2000 hanging Chad incidents. There's all kinds of great suggestions. Let me tell you, Blaine Pardoe, the author, knows an awful lot about the military. I mean, he's got it maxed out as far as weapons. He's got it maxed out as far as tactics. He understands battalion organization. He understands use of deadly force, rules of engagement, op orders. I mean, he's got it all planned. He understands FBI and state police stuff, because I have never seen it described to this detail as he does in the book. He's got operatives fairly well identified as far as CIA trained assassins and all this kinds of stuff. Just phenomenal. But so what I want to say is there's not that much you need 5 liters of water or a bug out bag or anything like that. What there is how do you become a gray man when everything around you has gone to pot? How do you maintain your wits, and how do you survive in a society that is contradictory to your personal beliefs? And so how do you take on that gray man, as Maddie does, Maddie Steele at the University of Virginia? How do you not give up your intrinsic personal rights or beliefs, yet still fit into the system so that you can study, learn, earn a living, and all that kinds of stuff? Kaylee, for example, when she's trying to evacuate Raul, she reaches into her bag. She says, we've got to change your appearance because there's all kinds of facial recognition software, cameras everywhere. They're going to see you. So a couple of things that she recommends are, well, she shaves his head, and then she puts on a fake chin that she had in a little bag of tricks. And I think she changed his nose. But she had 2 different pieces of fake skin that she could immediately put on him to alter his appearance so that he had less chance of facial recognition in the camera systems and in the facial recognition systems. And it works pretty much. When they finally ID them, the computer says that there's only an 85% match, but they say that's good enough. So, hats, okay? Do you wear, one of the bad guys wears the same hat? Well, he doesn't wear the same hat. He wears the same style of hat, several times in a row, and that helps identify him. So do you carry hats in your everyday carry, or caps, or whatever? Can you alter your facial shadows? Can you alter the angles at which things can see your face based upon hats, caps, scarves, things like that, that is going to be important to you to be a gray man when you need to be a gray man? So how are you going to get out of a situation that can otherwise be cataclysmic. They get into some outstanding tactics. How do two people, Kaylee and Raul, approach a roadblock and get through it when they know they're going to be identified? And so there's almost a chapter in that about how they plan that so that they can get in and out and around and everything else. And so a lot of great tactics, a lot of great strategy, a lot of great information on how to be the gray man. When I had my store, and this was back, I sold it in 2021. Is when I sold the store. So we were in the height of the cough lockdown when I sold it. As a matter of fact, my photocopier, I couldn't get the motherboard for it because all the motherboards they had used up all the motherboards here in the States, and the motherboards were on the ships in LA Harbor that were waiting because they were only unloading like one at a time. And so it took them 8 weeks to get a motherboard, when typically you could get them within 24 hours. But so what I did was I forget what book I read, but I was reading a book and they had a baseball cap with Velcro on the front. And so they said Velcro on the inside too. So on the outside, you might have a politically leaning one direction Velcro tab. But if you notice that this is right after the Summer of Love. But if you notice that the people around you are offended by that, then you reach inside, you pull out the other one, which is the other side of the conflict. You take off that one, put this one on. So you have interchangeable identities based upon the crowd within which you are working. So I sold those like you would not believe when I had the store, because I ordered all kinds of baseball hats with the Velcro on the front. And then I ordered all these patches. And so political patches and things like that, just phenomenal sales. So that was part of the gray man theory is how do you maneuver your way through a potentially hostile crowd? And I think that's going to be more and more important as we get into the heat of summer. I don't want to get too much into the actual, what are we going to call it? Genre of the script of what's going on here. There's so many great stories that are going on. It's just a phenomenal book. You've got to read this book. I honestly believe that 10, 15 years from now, we are going to be teaching this series of books in school the same way that we did George Orwell's 1984 and Animal Farm. I think they are that good. That the writing is just superior. The character development is great. The fact that he gives you all kinds of cheat sheets here as how you can remember from one book to the next what's going on, who's who, the what's what of the books. Just he's got prologues, epilogues like you would not believe. Throughout the entire book, there are flashbacks. For example, the San Antonio, which is, this is the Alamo, of course, is on the front here. The San Antonio riot is not handled as a current event. It's handled as a flashback. So Trip Rieger, the colonel who was a major in San Antonio, all of the things that happened in San Antonio are flashbacks, and they are supporting how he's making his current decisions in Chicago. Okay. So there's all kinds of flashbacks and things like that. The Steele family, there's discussions among the parents, the mother, father, son, David, and Maddie, the student, and how things are going to happen and how they're going to try to escape because, of course, he was a conservative legislator in the Virginia House of Commons. And so, there's all this intrigue that goes on. One of the things I like that they really show is if you are willing to put your life on the line to be a contrarian to events that are to the establishment, beware. If somebody is willing to break the law, in order to get what they want, at some point in the future, you are probably going to be an opponent to what they want to accomplish. And so we see that, and this is the case of Alex in the book, Alexandra, the congresswoman from New York. We see her taking out opponents, even inside the ruling council, and trying to create subterfuge in order to elevate herself, so that she has more power and so that she has more self-aggrandizement. Just unbelievable. But let's take a look at history, okay? When Stalin, Josip Broz, when Stalin took over after Lenin's death, okay? Remember, he had several people who assisted him in that coup that allowed the Bolsheviks to overthrow the Mensheviks and create what we know today as the Communist Party. And so Lenin did not trust Stalin at all. So you had, what was his name? Gosh, I forget the guy's name, but he was Trotsky, Leon Trotsky. Leon Trotsky was the hammer for Joseph Stalin. And so Leon Trotsky helped Stalin get into power. And then all of a sudden he said, oh my God, have I done something bad? I'm going to go try to form a new communist party, a new communist uprising in another country. And he went to Mexico City. Well, Stalin had him searched out, and they found Trotsky in his bed with an ice pick, one of those mountain climbing ice pick hammers or whatever's implanted in his head. When we take a look at, the head of Cuba, help me, I'm having a senior moment. I know Felix or Utah might, probably Kaylin will come up with it. Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro had Che Guevara. And so Che Guevara basically helped him to get to where he was. Then after he got to where he was, Che Guevara became a threat, so he got rid of Che Guevara. Fidel Castro, thank you guys. If you take a look at these guys, every single one of them, when they get to power, anybody that they perceive as a threat to them is taken out by them. Kim Jong-un, okay? His uncle, it helped put him in power and get him everything he had after his father, Kim Il-sung, passed away. So Kim Jong-un became the premier. And then within 2 years after Kim Jong-un became premier, he rewarded his uncle by firing squad with a 40 millimeter anti-aircraft exploding ammunition execution against the wall. So take a look at all these guys. That always happens when you have a totalitarian type of a government takeover. In order to have power, they have to maintain power, and anybody who is a threat to that power has to be eliminated. And so that is brought up very well in this book. They don't mention the historical things that I've mentioned, but they do point it out that that's exactly what Alex is doing to her threats in the book. Gosh, I tell you, it's an exciting book. You'll learn tactics, military tactics. You'll learn how to riot tactics. You will learn how to be a gray man. You will learn how to wisely assume an alternative location to avoid disclosure. You will find the importance of not being alone. Lone wolves will not make it in this kind of a world. That's all there is to it. So there's all kinds of great stuff in this book. I have something tabbed here and highlighted I wanted to read to you. History has shown us that to defeat evil, you must be willing to do some fairly dark things. If we try to play fair, I'm going to add, and by the rules, they will defeat us. And if they defeat us, we're all dead. So one of the things that we mistakenly, and we've seen it with our military, we have rules of engagement. So like in Afghanistan and Iraq, the rule of engagement was if they showed a weapon, we couldn't shoot them. They had to actively shoot at us before we could shoot back at them. So you've got to have a bullet coming at you, okay, before you can shoot back at them. And what does that do to our casualty rate? I mean, if you see somebody planting a bomb on the side of the road, unless you see him push the button, you're not allowed to shoot him. Those kinds of silly rules of engagement, we have to say, that doesn't do us any good. And if it comes to this, okay, if it comes to this, then we have to understand the rule is to survive. The rule is not to follow the rules. You've got to do what you've got to do to stay alive and to continue to exist. And quite often that means breaking the rules. Okay. So you have to be, I think we have to kind of have the mindset of being prepared to do that. Let me get a drink. I'm drinking beer tonight. So. One of the things we have to be aware of, the war between the states, the war of northern aggression, 1860 to 1865. So the South seceded from the United States. Did not do it militaristically. They just said, look, we aren't going to play this game anymore. We want out. Okay. You can't tell us. Remember, we have states' rights, the 9th and 10th Amendments. And you can't tell us how to run our states. And so we're pulling out. Nothing militaristic about it. There were several United States forts in the South to protect against another war of 1812, okay, when the British came in and started doing things against the United States. And so one of the bigger harbors, of course, was Charleston Harbor. And in Charleston Harbor was a major United States fort called Fort Sumter. So the South asked the North to please vacate Fort Sumter, that they were inside sovereign territory of the Confederate States of America. The North refused, and as a matter of fact, they sent reinforcements to Fort Sumter. So at that point, that is when the South decided they had to defend themselves and attack Fort Sumter. They'd asked them to leave politely, gave them a period of time to do that. The North refused, reinforced it. So that's when the battle started, was that they figured they could forcibly keep the South from leaving. And when they would forcibly force them back into the United States. So it's not going to be that way, this next one, okay? In that one, we had a dividing line, okay? We had North versus South. We had predominantly urban North versus predominantly rural South. And, you could pretty much tell what people were by the colors that they wore, blue uniforms versus gray uniforms or whatever. What's pointed out extremely well in this book is it's going to be ideology versus ideology, not location versus location, or an allegiance to Texas versus an allegiance to DC, or versus an allegiance to Minneapolis or anything like that. It's going to be very, very local, very parochial. And, people are going to be, you aren't going to know the other person, whether they are friend or enemy, unless they self-identify as friend or enemy. So wearing certain things is going to set you aside as being friend or enemy. One of the things that they do in this book is, in order to identify friends of the Americans, they use GBA. They sign their memos with GBA, God Bless America, which has been outlawed by New America. So you don't know whether the person next to you is really an American or really a New American. You don't really know. Now, a lot of them, they're going to put on a facade. They're going to, in one case, there's one state where they are putting on, they have all kinds of New American stuff all over the place. But when push comes to shove, that's not the way they feel. They're just doing that to ride with the masses. You're going to find that there are going to be other people who are going to be entrenched, but they believe something totally different. And so, it's going to be very difficult to find out who's a friend and who's an enemy. And unless those bonds are made in advance, so know who you can trust and who you can't trust right now. Started doing that. And but that's, oh gosh, let me tell you, I can't wait to get a hold of book 3. I can't wait. It's going to be something else. I'm going to predict that it takes place in Los Angeles. No, it's going to take place in Colorado and Los Angeles. So that's my prediction. But just phenomenal. I loved it. I read it in 2 days. Okay. I could not put it down. It's just absolutely enticing. So let me go back and catch up on your comments. Remember, I don't have a mouse, so I'm using my keyboard. Oh, it's working. Let me go up here. Kaylin Strain, hi, welcome. Let me see. Okay, so I said hi to Steve and Tina Jewell, Laura Mannion, and Kaylin, Tammy Harder. What did Kaylin say here? That's kind of long. Yeah, that you're absolutely right, Keeling. So I'm using StreamYard tonight, so I can kind of post that now and let people see what you said. Yeah, in America they came over. So one of the things in give you a little bit of Russian here, as far as I give you a lesson. So I'll write America in Russian for you. Okay, so the A is the same, A, and then M is the same. There are two forms of E's. Okay, there's this one, which is, they call it оборотная, or backwards E. Then they have the regular E, but the difference between the two is this is and this is ye. So this is hard and this is soft. So if we use the regular E here, it'd be America instead of America. And then the P is actually an R in Cyrillic. I. So then they have a hard I, and it's called the Yuri. We call it the 61 in English. And then K is K. They don't have a C. What they have as a C is actually an S in Cyrillic. So that's America. I'll give you another good one here. Khrushchev. So Khrushchev. Okay. So Khrushchev. This is Kh, R, U, and this is actually 4 letters combined. This is a SHCH, like in fresh cheese, sh, and then the E with the 2 dots over it, the umlaut is a yo, and then this is a V. It looks like a B to us. So this letter Ch is totally different from this letter K. Now then, but the way we transliterate it is we transliterate it as KH. So even though we pronounce this guy's name this way, or we spell it this way, we spell it this way. And so most Americans pronounce the K and not the H, whereas it's supposed to be actually you pronounce the H and not the K. Chru, and then sh, and then this is actually a yo. Remember up here, the E with the umlaut, and then V. So it's Khrushchev, not Khrushchev, but Khrushchev. But anyhow, so yes, very, very wise, good remembrance. That you're absolutely right. Academic advisor. Thank you, Kaylin. Once again, you've come to my you've saved me from my senior moments of forgetting vocabulary. So we've had very pleasant weather here, Tammy. We've had a little bit of rain. We had this week. It's only projected to get into the 90s. So we've only broken 100 a couple times this year. Movie makeup would be fantastic to have. So fake hair, anything you can add. You want to change the cheeks, the nose, and the chin, if you can do that. And then, of course, cover your head. So, oh, I just noticed. See my new shirt? What do you think of it, huh? So, okay, so let me show you. So I've got United States Army, and this is from 1970 to 1991. ASA, which is the Army Security Agency, and MI, because Army Security Agency and MI merged in 1977. So I tell most people, the Army Security Agency, they say, what is the Army Security Agency? Well, if you take the Army Security Agency, the Naval Security Group, and the Air Force Security Service, put them all three into the same building, and then put a 3-star in charge of it, it changes names and becomes the National Security Agency. So when most people say, well, don't you guys listen in on our comms and everything? I said, well, let me tell you something. The United States government did not send me to 3 years, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week of Russian language school to listen to you on your telephone. Just take that as a hint. But anyhow, so that's ASAMI. And then I have the same thing. I have my rank and ASAMI on the left shoulder, and then just the U.S. flag on the right shoulder. So this would get me in trouble in Numerica. Okay, they burned all the flags. We had a little bit of rain here too, Kaylin. So that's great. Yeah, not enough to really affect anything. Thursday is our water day. We are no longer under drought conditions, so we're allowed to water twice a week. I don't know what's going on with my irrigation system. It's not going off automatically. I've got to find out why not. It was supposed to go off at 8 o'clock and it didn't. Okay, so that's where we are with that. Let me tell you where we're going for next month, please. I'm going to tell you, Dune. Oh, Frank Herbert. Dune. I'm thinking of all these great books. Dune by Frank Herbert. Oh, what a great book. Did I say Pillars of the Earth by John Forsyth? Great book. The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Anything by John Steinbeck. Oh my gosh. Oh wow. Is that Global War? Is that what you're referring to? Global War on Terror 1, which is back just before I retired, 1990, Dioxyrus. And but anyhow, all these great books. So here's another. We've interviewed him on the show. Well, I wanted to tell you, we did do volume 1 of this, which is Blue Dawn. We did it April of 2024. Excuse me, April of 2024, we did volume 1. So if you want to go back and review that, we talked about it quite a bit. And then this one, of course, June of 2025, we're doing volume 2. I'm going to try to see if volume 3 has come out. And if so, we'll get it scheduled for next month. Franklin Horton, we had him, we interviewed him a couple of years ago. He has some phenomenal books. Now, these are going to give you kind of the same thing as what Blaine Pardoe does, but he does add a lot more prepper stuff into it. So he had 3 major lines of books, okay? And so they're different series. The original series is the one we're going to start reading now. And then he had another series that's a spinoff. We'll get to, when we get to volume 3 of this, there will be a character introduced called Mad Mick. Mad Mick then, after volume 3 of the Locker 9 series, takes off and into his own series. He's basically a John Wick type of a person in a post-apocalyptic world, taking care of all the bad guys. The one that we've already done was the Borrowed World series. So the Borrowed World series, and we did this back in 2023, I believe. Let me see. Where's my somewhere I have a list of all the ones we've done. I think it's in this book. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we did Home Invasion, Conflicted Home, The Borrowed World. We started September 12th of 23 with volume. So, starting in September 20 of 23 is when we did The Borrowed World, which was fantastic. That's basically 6 psychologists, social workers who go to Roanoke, Virginia for a seminar. And they are actually from the very tip of North Carolina. No, maybe it's Roanoke. I don't know. Maybe they went to somewhere in North Carolina, but they're from the very, or are they from the very western end of Virginia? I forget. Either North Carolina. It is North Carolina. And they're from the very western tip of North Carolina. But SHTF happens while they're there, and how the 6 of them try to make their way back. And they end up dividing up into 2 groups. One group makes it, one group doesn't. And the books are very explicit as to why. Stupidity primarily. Only 1.5 of them are preppers. The lead character is a prepper. Every time I read one of the Franklin Horton's books, I think of a friend of mine who has a fantastic YouTube channel on Friday nights at 6:45, and his name is Prepping with Sarge. He is a psychologist who works for South Carolina. So, there are a lot of stuff in there. The prepper guy, the psychologist prepper guy in Franklin Horton's books is a forager. So is Prepping with Sarge. I mean, there is so much similarity. I always think of him as I'm reading the books. But anyhow, and then how they make their way back home after SHTF and no gasoline and all this kinds of stuff. And actually some of the stuff that they encounter on the Appalachian Trail. So that was that. We did Blue Dawn. Let me see if I can find it here in my notes. Blue Dawn was January 25th to 24. So about 1.5 years ago is when we did Blue Dawn. So anyhow, next month we're going to start with Locker 9. This was the first of Franklin Horton's books. The premise here is that there's a young lady in college, away in Georgia in college, and her dad is a prepper, and so he wants to take care of her. So he rents one of those storage lockers and basically has a trailer full of preparedness items in the storage locker, so that if anything happens, she can go get the trailer and then evacuate and have everything she needs to take care of herself. And so, this is a 4 or 5 book series on the things that they encounter after picking up the trailer and trying to make it home in a post-apocalyptic world, and some of the diversions and some of the distractions. And of course, once again, it becomes extremely important on who your friends are, who you know, who you can trust, who you can't trust, and things like that. So this is a fantastic series. There's a lot more preparedness stuff in this. You can see that I've got a lot more tabs in it. As a matter of fact, he has a fairly detailed list of some of the items that he has in his bug out locker, this shed that he has rented for her. And I have some great quotes in here. Let me tell you, this book is chock full of fantastic quotes that just apply to your everyday life, that apply to a world gone astray, to a world gone crazy, how you can maintain calm and conjecture in a crazy, beat up world. How do you, with all the subterfuge around you, how do you maintain your sanity? Kind of the same thing in this book, okay, that we'll be doing for the month of July. So the last Thursday in July, we're going to be doing Locker 9 by Franklin Horton. And like I said, his 3 major series are: number 1, the Locker 9 series that will be starting in July. Number 2 is his Something World. Let me see. Let me get my notes out here. Borrowed World. The Borrowed World series, which is those psychologists coming back from a conference. And then this 3rd series is an offshoot of this one. That character will be introduced in volume 3, and his name is Mad Mick, and he's kind of a John Wick, a John Wick of Bartertown type of a situation. Yeah, if we can take a whole bunch of post-apocalyptic shows and things to put together. Okay, Caitlin says Roanoke's a village a city in West Virginia. they go off to this eastern portion of the state for a state convention, and they have to get back to the western side of the state and down south. So they go from northeast to southwest, and it might even be that they cross over two states. I don't remember, but anyhow. But great things. Last week of July to August 1st, I'll be at my late dad's favorite Iowa lake. Oh my gosh. Fishing, I hope. As a matter of fact, my best friend has recently, he's had 2 of his radiation therapy treatments for prostate cancer. So he had his second radiation treatment yesterday, and we can't go hunting anymore. The 2 of us are just too old to go out and try to drag a carcass out of the fields back to and we don't. Neither one of us has a 4-wheeler, and so we're just getting too old to hunt. So and neither one of us has sons. We both have daughters, and neither one of them, our daughters, aren't into hunting. So we've decided he has a bass boat. We're just going to go fish, and if you're going fishing, I envy you. I think that is fantastic. Okay, let me catch up here. That looks like that's the last comment. Is from Kaylin. So we're just under an hour. Golly, I can't believe that I'm getting quicker at this and not taking up your entire more than an hour with these book reviews. But let me tell you something. I'm going to. I put it in the introduction. I'm going to say it again and again. This series, in my opinion, if you're only going to read one post-apocalyptic, very close to reality, how I think it'll really happen, thing to be scared of, thing to make you aware of what's going to be happening, read this series so that you have a better understanding of the fact that it's not going to be a simple civil war. It's not going to be something where you can identify the enemy. You're going to live in trepidation all the time. You're going to worry whether or not the social engineers, social engagement forces are going to be knocking at your door in the middle of the night or not, because you didn't do something they think you should have, or you did do something that they think you shouldn't have. There's a fantastic quote. I should have highlighted it, and I think it's one of the chapter headlines. And it's basically, let me see if I can find it. Here's a good one. Most people who use the word freedom mean the opposite. The only fair elections are the ones we say are fair. And that's what Josip Broz, Joseph Stalin, that's what he said. It's not who votes that makes the decision. It's he who counts the votes who makes the decisions. And isn't that the truth? And so, it's unbelievable, but that's the world we live in. Okay. July 31st is the last day of July, is the last Thursday of the month. So July 31st will be our get together at 8 p.m. to discuss Franklin Horton's Locker 9. This is a fantastic series too, by the way. But I still think, I think that Blaine Pardoe deserves the same recognition as, oh gosh, now I'm going to forget his name, George Orwell, for 1984 in Animal Farm. I mean, that's how good this book is. I'll put a link for it. Please get a copy of the series, get a copy of each book, read it, be aware. It will make you elevate. I say keep your head on a swivel. This is going to force you, when you see the possibilities, to elevate that swivel another 3 or 4 feet in elevation, so that you get a wider perspective of what's going on around you. Okay, so here we go. The book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. And let me tell you something. I thank God we have at least a temporary peace in the Middle East. People are not killing each other. And I think the sooner that we can discover that we are all human beings, that we have to live on this marble together, and that we can't live on this marble together by constantly hitting each other or striking each other or killing our relatives. I wish we could find a way to convince mankind that war is never the answer, but I don't think we're going to do that. And let me tell you, it's not hypocritical. I served 21 years in the Army, and the reason I served 21 years in the Army is because I believe very, very, very strongly that the best way to be a deterrent to war is for other people to think they can't win it. So, I have the utmost respect for my fellow brothers in arms, whatever service that might be. Although sometimes I get jealous of the fact that a hardship tour for the Air Force is when they have to go to a 4-star hotel instead of a 5. But, other than that, the rest of us, but keep your head on a swivel. Okay. Even though we have peace, I'm not convinced it's going to be lasting. Okay. Take care, everybody. Please remember to be kind, polite, and respectful to each other. I continue to work on that. So that's something I strive. I fail, but I strive. Okay. Take care, everybody. Fantastic seeing you. I see you Monday night for our nonfiction book club, and have a wonderful summer. Take care. Bye-bye.